My in-laws' laughter echoed across the lawn as they tossed my last box onto the damp grass. "This house is for family." My father-in-law, John, sneered, his face a mask of pure, smug satisfaction. "And you're no longer family." They were still laughing when my lawyer's car pulled into the driveway, a sleek black shadow that was about to eclipse their little celebration. They thought they'd won. They thought the house my husband and I had poured our lives into was their inheritance now. What they didn't know was that my grief had sharpened into a diamond-hard resolve. And my late husband, Mark, had left me one final gift: the power to put them right back in their place. If you believe that justice should always be served, no matter how long it takes, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel. You are not going to want to miss a single second of the payback that's coming. It all started the day we buried Mark. The silence in the car on the way back from the cemetery wasn't empty. It was thick with calculation. I could feel my mother-in-law, Beatrice, and my father-in-law, John, watching me, their minds already divvying up my life. Mark was their only son, and in their heads, his death meant his assets, including our beautiful home, would just fall into their laps. Mark had been sick for a long time, so we both knew his prognosis wasn't good. During those long, quiet nights in the hospital, he'd warned me. "They're like sharks, honey," he'd whispered, his hand frail in mine. "The moment they smell blood, they'll come for everything. You have to be strong." I didn't feel strong then, I just felt broken. To really get their greed, you have to understand our living situation. A few years into our marriage, after John had a minor health scare, Mark suggested they move in with us. He was a good son, maybe too good, and he wanted them close so we could care for them. The house was ours, bought with our savings and built on our dreams. But to keep the peace and satisfy Mark's sense of duty, we let them live under our roof, rent-free. We never bothered to correct them when they called the house a family estate, a legacy that would one day be theirs. It was a little white lie, a quiet nod to their egos, and it was a mistake that would nearly cost me my dignity. After the funeral, their attitude shifted from a quiet sense of entitlement to outright hostility. Beatrice would walk through the living room, running her finger along the furniture and murmuring things like, "This will look so much better in the guest room once we've redecorated." John started calling my office his study. They were erasing me from my own home while I was still standing right there, treating me like a guest whose welcome had run out. The final blow landed about a month after Mark passed. I came home from a grocery run to find my suitcases sitting on the porch. John stood there, arms crossed, with Beatrice peering over his shoulder, a thin, triumphant smile on her face. "What is this?" I asked, my voice trembling. "It's time for you to go," John said, his tone completely flat. "This is our son's house. It belongs to us now. We've been more than generous letting you stay this long." Generous? I was just stunned. Mark and I bought this house. My name is on the... Beatrice cut me off with a sharp laugh. "Oh, darling, don't be naive. We all know Mark handled the finances. You were just the wife. Now, you're the widow. There's a difference." The cruelty was just breathtaking. They weren't just grieving. They were vultures circling what they thought was theirs for the taking. They threw my clothes, my photos, my memories of a life with their son out onto the lawn. Every box that hit the grass felt like a punch to the gut. Their laughter was the soundtrack to my complete humiliation, a public spectacle of my deepest loss. The shame felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I just gathered what I could, my hands shaking, and drove away as they watched from the doorway, their faces glowing with victory. That first night in a sterile, anonymous motel room, the reality of it all hit me. The anxiety, the depression, the sheer trauma of losing not just my home, but my entire support system in one move. It was overwhelming. But as the initial shock wore off, something else took its place. It was Mark's voice, clear as day in my memory. "You have to be strong." Grief had hollowed me out, but it had also forged something new inside me. A cold, unyielding resolve. I opened the briefcase I'd had the foresight to grab. It was the one thing they never thought to check. Inside, nestled among other important documents, was a thick folder, and inside that folder was my secret weapon. Mark knew his parents. He knew exactly what they were like, and he had been meticulous. Before he passed, we met with our lawyer. Mark saw this coming, their greed, their entitlement, and he put a failsafe in place. What my in-laws didn't know was that the house was not in both our names. It wasn't even in Mark's name alone. The deed, the one document that proves ownership, was in my name and my name only, to make it ironclad. Our lawyer had us file the paperwork for a quiet title action, a legal proceeding to shut down any future challenges to my ownership. It was a legal fortress, designed to be impenetrable. I looked at the deed, my name clearly printed as the sole owner. I also had years of property tax receipts. I'd personally paid and bank statements showing the mortgage payments coming from my own account. It wasn't just a claim. It was a rock-solid, legally recorded fact. Their laughter on the lawn had been their cruel way of trying to dominate me. But this was a competition they had already lost. They had judged me, underestimated me, and assumed my grief made me weak. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. I picked up my phone and made one calm call. "Robert," I said when the lawyer answered. "It's Sarah. They did exactly what Mark said they would. It's time." 2 days later, I returned. I parked down the street and just watched. My in-laws were hosting what looked like a victory party. Cars lined the curb, and I could hear faint music and laughter. They were celebrating in my house, on my property. Then, a black sedan pulled up silently in front of the house. Robert, my lawyer, stepped out. He was in his late 50s, tall and impeccably dressed, carrying a leather briefcase. He just radiated this calm, unshakable authority. He walked up the driveway with a purpose that made my heart pound, with a mix of fear and pure, exhilarating anticipation. I watched as he rang the doorbell. John answered, drink in hand, his face flushed from the party. His smile faltered when he saw Robert. "Can I help you?" John asked, trying to sound bold. "My name is Robert Klein," the lawyer said, his voice level and professional. "I'm the legal representative for the owner of this property, Sarah Carter." John scoffed. "Sarah? She doesn't own anything. This was our son's house. It's ours now, by inheritance." "I'm afraid you're mistaken," Robert said, opening his briefcase. The deed, recorded with the county, clearly lists Sarah Carter as the sole legal owner. He continued. "Pulling out another sheaf of papers, on top of that, we have property tax records paid by Mrs. Carter for the last 5 years and mortgage statements funded directly from her accounts. This isn't a matter of inheritance. It's a matter of established legal ownership." The color drained from John's face. The laughter inside the house seemed to die down as people started noticing the confrontation on the porch. Beatrice appeared behind her husband, her condescending curiosity quickly melting into confusion. "What is this nonsense?" she demanded. "He's lying. Mark would never do that." "Your son, Mark, was a very forward-thinking man," Robert said calmly. "He arranged this specifically to protect his wife from this exact scenario. He initiated a quiet title action to ensure there would be no conflicting claims or challenges to her title. According to this legally binding court judgment, your claim to this property is null and void." "In fact," Robert added, his voice dropping just a bit, "you are currently trespassing." That word just hung in the air, trespassing. The transformation was glorious to witness, even from a distance. The smug superiority vanished, replaced by sheer, unfiltered panic. John started sputtering, his face turning a blotchy red. Beatrice looked like she was about to faint. The party guests inside were now silent, just staring out the windows as their party turned into a public spectacle of humiliation. Robert was relentless. "My client has been gracious. She is giving you 24 hours to vacate the premises. If you are not gone by noon tomorrow, she will have the local sheriff escort you off the property. A formal eviction notice will be served." The mention of a formal eviction, the very legal process they had so cruelly mocked, was the final, devastating blow. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I didn't need to. The image of their shocked, defeated faces was more than enough. I drove back to my motel, and for the first time in over a month, I slept soundly. The next day, at 1 p.m, I returned home. Their cars were gone. The house was silent. A few stray party napkins on the lawn were the only sign they had ever been there. I walked through the front door of my house. The air already felt lighter. I had the locks changed that afternoon. The fallout, of course, was immense. Their attempt to contest the deed failed spectacularly, just as Robert predicted. The quiet title action had made my ownership legally unchallengeable. They were forced to move into a small, cramped apartment across town, and their public humiliation became the topic of local gossip for weeks. Whatever was left of our family bonds shattered completely. This all-out war could have been avoided with simple honesty and respect, but their greed left no room for either. In the end, it wasn't just about the house. It was about reclaiming my dignity. It was about honoring my husband's last wish. He knew his parents, and he had armed me not for revenge, but with a shield of truth. As I stood in the living room, sunlight streaming through the windows, I felt a sense of peace finally settle over me. The laughter was gone, replaced by the quiet, steady hum of a life that was, once again, all my own. Family drama can bring out the absolute worst in people, but sometimes it also brings out a strength we never knew we had. If this story resonated with you, share it with a friend who loves a good justice story. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories where the wronged finally get what they deserve.